Hello and welcome to the Divorce Sanctuary. On this channel I talk about healing from emotional abuse and divorcing the emotional abuser. And in this video I just wanted to talk about the last 12 months, and it was triggered from a post on Facebook. I talk a lot about this, about maybe wanting to vent and say something, but not using social media as a way of doing it. But what you can do is change the privacy settings to only me, which is the little padlock. And I came across, it was a few days ago, 21st of December actually, I came across a post from about 4 years ago. And I sort of remember the place I would have been in. I remember maybe the conversations and the email exchange. And my whole goal in this process, whether you're married to them and divorcing, or whether you're in a short-term or long-term relationship, is to be in a place that you're emotionally divorced from them. And that isn't an easy process because of all the hormones and because of the manipulation that went on, the coercion that went on in the relationship. But the ultimate goal is to be emotionally divorced. It's to have absolutely no feeling. And this post that I was talking about was a realisation. I'd recently found out things, or things had started to fall into place. I'd found a post or something that I'd posted about a date night had been rejected. I found that he had changed his status from being married to not having any status, removed everything that linked him. I found this out before we separated. So it was, all these things were starting to fall into place. It was as if my anaesthetised brain had started to wake up. So this is a few months, 3 months after he'd left, and I'd had some hoovering, various different communications, particularly when I said that I wanted to break contact with him for a while just to sort my head out. That's when the onslaught happened. And this post, which had said to only me, was, I hope you meet someone who's got a bigger ego. Again, I had no closure. I had no idea that the person he was living with, who was a friend, was actually going to turn into more. The post was, very emotional, but wanting, I think it was like maybe wanting vengeance. I hope he comes back so that I can, give him the middle finger and say, nah, too late. But that's not where I am now. Over the years, I've been, as much as I can, deleting absolutely everything, because I just don't need those reminders. I don't need that to be reminded of what happened, and I don't get anything. I just don't need it. It's there's no emotion attached to anything. There was something that came up from about 8 years ago at a Christmas event, and I just thought, I don't need to see this now. I just don't need this reminder coming up every year. Doesn't upset me, doesn't hurt me. This post was behind this video, and being emotionally divorced, you get nothing. There's no feeling behind it. That is the ultimate goal. And I was just thinking about how things have changed and how my process has changed. So 12 months ago, I posted some videos around healing, about grounding, calming the body down. 2 years ago at Christmas, because loneliness is one of the most horrific things to come out of when you come out of these relationships, is feeling so lonely and not having anybody around you. So I'm going to put those links in the description box below. I was looking at the videos that I've been posting, and in fact I went from video to audio purely to speed things up. I was finding the time it was taking me to edit and set everything up, sometimes it's easier to jump on and do the audio. So 12 months ago, I was living in a different place, just recently divorced. I was a few months into that being finalised. I was in the process of having my book edited, and I think around about sort of January, I spoke to an old designer colleague friend who did the artwork in the end for the book cover. Somebody had recommended an editor, so I think she'd given me some edits, and then I realised that I had more to say, and there was more that I needed to put back in, so I needed to go through that whole process again. I started the year talking about sex and coercion, and these videos I get so many comments, I get so many emails about people that have been in these situations trying to understand, and it's all to do with the hormones and the chemicals. When we go into a relationship with someone, we're building trust, and that trust is destroyed. And when we go into an intimate relationship with someone, we're taking that trust to a different level, and that is annihilated. And you've got two types of people in these relationships: the ones that use sex as a way of manipulation, and ones that are just purely use it in a narcissistic way for their own pleasure. They don't see that their partner is entitled to any gratification and any attention, and it's all about them having their needs met. In those instances, the people who've been in those relationships aren't really going to be searching for these videos. So when you trust someone on that level, and then you come out of it and you've got the hormones rushing around you, I describe it like a raging teenager. And it is. When the hormones are starting to release, they get a rush, and their brain explodes as well, expands and grows. And it's at this point, it's really, this is why they find it quite hard to communicate. Like their limbs, when their limbs grow and they get really clumsy, it's because the nerves haven't caught up with the bone growth. And so they think their hands may be, a few inches higher up. They can't pick their feet up because they don't realise their feet are where they are. And it's the same with the brain. The brain explodes and there's a growth in there. And then when they're training it, through their learning, they're discovering which bits, and that's why some of the brain shrinks back. And this is what's happening in your body at these times. You're trying to marry up what was happening and the words that you were told, and they just don't go together. They don't fit. This is the mindfuckery, the crazy making, the cognitive dissonance that happened. And with sex, it's an intimate act that happens between two people that love each other. Only as you're discovering this, and this relationship is unraveling, you're discovering that maybe they didn't love you. So I started, that's how I started the year. I started going in on this level of intimacy, and having the A to Z, getting that in the process of being published. And then, of course, we had this whole pandemic that started to play out in front of us. And just as that, the universe is just absolutely amazing, because out of nowhere, I don't even know how it happened, but we ended up deciding to move. And that all happened very quickly, and I couldn't actually believe how it was going on. I should believe, but it was a bit surreal at the time. We found somewhere to live, and the dates were all being sorted out, and all of a sudden they changed, and they and this is weeks. We were originally moving right not in the middle of the pandemic, but within a week of the pandemic we would have been in lockdown, and it all changed very quickly, and we actually moved in 3 weeks before lockdown. The whole of this year has been quite surreal. Like 2020, that move happened so quickly. The whole situation around it moved a lot quicker, and I feel like 2020 has just been on super speed. I've been talking about supporting people through the divorce process. I was also in the given the opportunity to work with Women's Refuge, and I've been training to work with them. Originally I wanted to help them on their helpline. That was the original plan, but working with them and talking to them, I've decided to move over into a different area, and ideally I'd really like to support people going through that court process, having to go to court, because there's nothing there to support you. It should be a done and dusted deal, and this is the whole point of the shuffling around during this year. It's finding my feet, finding what fits properly, and really niching into that. The videos, I couldn't decide whether to do two channels, one for divorce and one for emotional abuse, but they run hand in hand. You need to know about emotional abuse. Also, part of the way through the year I went back to basics again, and I changed some of my videos back to trauma bonding, because a lot of people are talking about gaslighting, the situation we're in at the moment, as gaslighting, but it's trauma bonding. The being promised something and then have it taken away, and then having the goalposts moved. I saw right at the beginning of this whole situation there was a massive exercise of trauma bonding that was taking place and creating fear. It's really difficult, and I talk about it a lot, and I have done for a long time, that coming out of an abusive relationship, you have no idea that you've been in an emotionally abusive relationship. Sometimes I use narcissist on the titles of my videos, but that's really for being picked up and being opened. So I suppose that's a bit of manipulation. For someone to be classed as a narcissist or a sociopath, which I don't think's actually a term now, I think it's been taken out of the DSM, or a psychopath, you have to have a specialist, someone in that area, diagnose you. Emotional abuse and coercive control can run in all areas. It doesn't have to be romantic relationships or marriages. It can be with family members, it can be in the workplace, and it can be via governments. So I started to go down that route, trying to educate people and trying to highlight trauma bonding and helping them understand that the manipulation process and the cycle that happens to get you into a place of fear and reliance. And that's really what it is. Coming out of these relationships, you need to do a lot of healing. You need to go in and do a lot of work to untangle. You didn't know this was going on. So my whole year has been looking at balancing between divorce and emotional abuse, and particularly trauma bonding, and helping people understand the bonds that are created. And this is why people go back so many times. It feels so dangerous out of the relationship. You become reliant on that person. You've been convinced that you aren't worthy. Your self-esteem has been stripped, and you don't believe that anything that you have got to say or any part of you is of value to anybody. And it takes a long time to recover from that type of abuse, but it can be done. And as I said at the beginning, the ultimate goal is to be emotionally divorced from them. And that means that you get no reaction. You can see something, you can hear something about them, and you just go, okay, well, lucky them, or I feel sorry for the partner or whatever. But there's no animosity, and at that point, that's when you know that you're emotionally divorced. So that's 2020 has been the most weirdest year. I know we're not actually out of it yet. There's still a week or so to go, and I'm sure there's still months of this situation before we come out or see the end or see the light at the end of the tunnel. I am going to be running a course and I will put the details below. It's a free workshop on the 31st of December at 10 o'clock. If you subscribe and you can't make it, I'll send you the link anyway. I will be recording it, but I will be editing everyone out, so will just be me and maybe responding to any questions. So the privacy element is there as well. I'm in the process of writing 3 things you should never do divorcing a narcissist. I'm still in the process of doing that. I need to I've spoken to my editor. I need to finish it and get it over to her. This is probably the last video that I'm going to do of 2020, so I'm wishing you season's greetings. I'm asking you to really look after yourself. You can get my self-care package. That's on my website. I put the link to that below. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Sending you loads and loads of love for the rest of 2020, and I will see you in 2021.